All right, so this is a video that you can use to practice your division. So let's watch the doorbell ring first, and then we're going to do an activity together on the video.
The Doorbell Rang by Pat Hutchins. I've made some cookies for tea, said Ma. Good, said Victoria and Sam. We're starving. Share them between yourselves, said Ma. I made plenty. That's 6 each, said Sam and Victoria. They look as good as Grandma's, said Victoria. They smell as good as Grandma's, said Sam. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Tom and Hannah from next door. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. That's 3 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Tom. And look as good, said Hannah. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Peter and his little brother. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. That's 2 each, said Victoria and Sam. They look as good as your grandma's, said Peter, and smell as good. Nobody makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Joy and Simon with their 4 cousins. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. That's 1 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Joy, and look as good, said Simon. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. And rang. Oh dear, said Ma, as the children stared at the cookies on their plates. Perhaps you'd better eat them before we open the door. We'll wait, said Sam. It was Grandma with an enormous tray of cookies. How nice to have so many friends to share them with, said Grandma. It's a good thing I made a lot. And no one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang.
All right, and then to go along with this, we've got an activity. Okay, so the reason why we looked at the story, the doorbell rang, is because we are going to be starting division. Okay, you've been working on multiplication for the past few weeks, and so we're going to move into division. In division, we're going to start with just the basics. When you're talking about division, you're dividing things out, you're separating things out into smaller groups. Okay, and so the goal is to see how many equal groups that you can create. Okay, and if you can't create equal groups, then you're going to have some things left over, and those things are going to be called remainders, which we'll talk about later. But let's work through the doorbell rang. And so in the story, you know, Mom had made cookies for Victoria and Sam, and then as people, you know, the doorbell kept ringing, people kept coming in, and she had to start dividing out the cookies even more and more as the people were coming. And so we're going to practice dividing these cookies. Now, I wish that I could send this to you to where you could touch and drag and stuff on the screen. But this is just going to be interactive. You'll just have to, you know, listen and participate. I move them on the screen. But you've got activities that you can do on iReady as well for division. Okay. And so let's look at this right here. All right, so she has 12 cookies, and so it says Victoria and Sam will have 6 each. And let's see how they know that. When you're doing division, you want to do one at a time to make sure each group is going to have the same amount, or to see if they will have the same amount. And so I started with 12 cookies. And so I'm taking and dragging one to each group. I have 2 plates there. So I'm going to divide them out equally amongst these 2 plates. And so when I started with 12, if I keep taking turns doing one each, then that means that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this one. Okay, so I had 12 cookies, and we divided them into 2 groups. So that meant that each group had 6 of them in there. Okay, well, the doorbell rang. Okay, and Tom and Hannah came in, and they share the cookies. So now we have to remember, we still have that 12 cookies. But now we have 4 plates. So let me stop and ask you this. When it was just Victoria and Sam, they had 6 cookies each. Are they still going to get 6 cookies each in this one, you think? No, probably not. And what the amount of cookies that each kid gets is going to go down. And that's the thing with division. The more that you have to divide it in between, the more groups or the more people, the less you're going to get. Okay? And so we're going to take our 12 cookies. There's still 12. And this time we do 1 per plate again. Do it 1 at a time to see how many cookies each kid will get. Oops. All right. So if you look, how many cookies does each kid get now? Yeah, they get 3. There's 3 in each one of these groups. So I could say that I had 12. I divided it, and that's one of our division signs. I divided it into 4 different groups. Then that means that they got 3 each. And I want you to notice something too. You can take a division problem and you can turn it around into a multiplication. 3 times 4 equals 12. And so this is called inverse operations. Just like when you have been taught fact families, you know, you've been taught that 4 plus 3 equals 7, 3 plus 4 equals 7, and then you do the subtraction, 7 minus 3 equals 4, and then 7 minus 4 equals 3. Well, you learned that early on, back in 2nd grade. This one is the same principle, except you're using multiplication and division. So if I wanted to do that, I could say, okay, 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So if I switch these two, then I'm going to say 12 divided by 3 equals 4. And then I'm going to switch and do multiplication. I'm going to start with the 4. I'm going to say 4 times 3 equals 12. And then I'm going to switch these two around and say 3 times 4 equals 12. Now, not only do you need to know multiplication for error model, but look, you're needing to know your basic multiplication facts to help you with division now. And that's why it's so important that you keep practicing and learning your multiplication facts. Okay? All right, let's continue on. Peter and his brother came in after that doorbell rang again. They can share the cookies. How many people do we have now? 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many cookies do we still have? Yeah, 12. They haven't been able to eat their cookies yet. People keep coming in. So the amount of cookies has not changed. Now let me stop and ask you this. Will each kid get more or even less cookies this time? Yeah, they're going to get even less cookies because there's 2 more people to divide it out between. So here we go, 1 at a time. So each plate gets 1 again. I'm going to go back over here where I started and do it all again, over again, until I have no more cookies. How many cookies do they each get now? Yeah, they only get 2. Remember, Victoria and Sam started out with 6 each at the beginning. Now they're down to 2 each because people keep coming. All right, now there's nothing wrong with sharing, but you just have to know that you're going to have less cookies. Started with 12. There were 6 groups, so 12 divided by 6 means that how many is going to be in each group? Good, 2. Flip that around into multiplication. 2 times 6 equals 12. Okay? Joy and Simon and their 4 cousins came in. They can share the cookies. All right, now how many plates do we have now? 3, 6, 9, 12. There's 12 plates. There's 12 cookies. How many cookies will each kid get this time? Yeah, they're only going to get 1. If there's 12 cookies and now I've got 12 plates, then that means each plate for each kid gets 1 cookie. Okay. And so I could say on this one that if I started out with 12 and I divided it into 12 groups, then that means that there's only one in each group. 1 times 12 equals 12. 12 divided into 12 smaller groups means 1 in each group. Okay? All right. Finally, Grandma comes with an enormous tray of cookies at the end. But at the very end, remember, we even heard the doorbell ring again. Okay? So now let's look at a couple more examples. It says, how many cookies are there to share? How many cookies do we have down here to share? Yeah, there's 6 cookies there. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So 6 cookies. How can you share these cookies between 2 people? So here's our 2 people. Here's our 2 groups. Okay? How can we share them? How many cookies do they each get? Well, I'm going to take and do one at a time. Okay? Divide them out. And how many cookies did each kid get? Yeah, they got 3. Okay? So I could say that I had 6 and I divided them into 2 groups, which meant they each got 3. All right, let's do another. How many cookies are there to share? How many cookies do we have now? Yeah, it's 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's divide them out between 2 people. One at a time. So 1 for this one for that one, another one for that pink, another one for the green. We keep separating them out one at a time, dividing them out equally. How many does each person get? Yep, they each get 4. So if I started with 8 and I divided those into 2 groups, then that meant there were 4 in each group. Okay, what about this one? 4 cookies, 2 people. How many will they each get? This one's pretty easy to see right here. There's your 2 groups right there. Okay, so when you go to divide them out, 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, we see that each person gets 2 cookies. All right, let's do another one. This one's got how many cookies? Good, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many people are there to divide it between? Good. 1, 2, 3. All right, so let's divide them out one at a time. So give everybody 1 cookie. How many cookies does each person get? Good, 2. So I had 6 cookies. This time, though, I divided it into 3 groups. I split them into 3 groups, which meant I have 2 in each group. So 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Okay, all right. So you continue working on your division. Today, what I want you to do is I want you to find either cookies or cereal or blocks or beads or pretzels, coins, whatever you may have. I want you to practice going through. And I know I can't be there to see you do it, and then there's not necessarily a worksheet to turn in today, but I want you to have some hands-on practice today. Start with a big group and see if you can divide them out equally. Okay, so if you start with 24 quarters or whatever you might gather up, practice dividing them out into different groups. You know, you might separate them out into 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, whatever. You're going to have some that sometimes are going to be left over. And so when you're practicing sorting these out, if you have anything left over, like if I had an extra cookie in this group, let's say I'd had 7 cookies instead of, 6. Well, then I would have had 2 in a group, but then I would have had 1 left over. And this one would have been my remainder. So I would have had 3 equal groups of 2, but then I would have had 1 left over as a remainder. So practice, get some hands-on sorting today, dividing a whole group, a whole number out into smaller groups.